Believe me, this subject of the colonization of India, the independence movement in India, India's eventual separation from Britain is going to be a focal point of this course. So we're going to start this process out today. Now the text is pretty thorough. I mean, it's one of those assignments where the reading is not that long, but it's packed with information. So what I wanted to do in this presentation is supplement some of that, give you some background on some ideas, and put it into a broader context. There's two essential questions. What was the East India Company, and what was this company's role in the colonization of India? And number two, what was the Black Hole of Calcutta, and why was this event significant? Have you ever heard of the Black Hole of Calcutta? Well, you're going to hear about it in this presentation. Now, the last really significant Mughal ruler was a man by the name of Aurangzeb, and he did some really ridiculous things which undermined his rule with many people in India. He died in 1707, and that is the time period when you start to see a sharp decline in the Mughal Empire. This created a void, an empty space. I love the Rubik's Cube without the middle square. And this void is going to be filled by aggressive British imperialists. Make certain that you grasp some of the concepts that are talked about early in the reading, particularly the concept of the Nawab, a local ruler. Reminded me of what took place periodically in China. The text references the British East India Company, but more detail is needed. In 1600, Queen Elizabeth I chartered the East India Company. Its mission was to act as a governing agent for the merchants of London who had an interest in trading in the East Indies. You can see the East Indies on this map. And they were really interested in areas today that are Indonesia and Malaysia. The interest in India would come quickly, however. This was the dawn, 1600, the dawn of British imperial motives. The company, the East India Company, rose to account for half the world's trade, particularly in basic commodities, including cotton, silk, indigo, dye, salt, saltpeter, tea, and opium. The company also ruled the beginnings of the British Empire in India. The East India Company acted like a local government. In their massive holdings, they were the law. They also hired massive private armies to enforce their will. Here's an image of the sepoys. These were native British soldiers. More about these private armies soon in the next presentation. I like the map that's in your books. I included an image of it here. And what you can do is you can keep referring back to that page, keep referring back to that image. It helps you with geographic areas that are probably not that familiar to you. A hugely significant event in the British rule of India took place in the summer of 1756. The Nawab of Bengal, the province on the northeast side of India, became frustrated with the East India Company's control over his domain. He felt like he was not in charge. He had no sovereignty. He ordered the attack of Fort William, the British military base in the heart of Calcutta. The badly outnumbered British were quickly defeated, but there were some survivors. Although the numbers are disputed, some talk about 60 people were locked in this prison, others talk about 120 people were locked in this prison. Nonetheless, these survivors were stuffed into a room that was a grand total of 18 feet by 14 feet, much, much smaller than Mr. Sertiman's classroom. The Fort William prison, which is now referred to as the Black Hole of Calcutta, that was this room. After an excruciating night where these people were literally packed into one another, unable to use the restroom, unable to get food, unable to get water, unable to get air, only 23 survived. The British were profoundly impacted by this incident. Here is the marker on the spot. Now, could you even imagine any concern whatsoever if these people were Indians. But the fact that they killed British subjects set people off. There'd be hell to pay for this affront to the British citizens. The incident in 1756 inspired Britain to assert its dominance over all of India. And over the next decades, the British would defeat militarily any challenge. As the text mentions, by the 19th century, Britain had an empire in India that was more populous than Western Europe. This empire would be called the Jewel of the British Crown. And there's lots more story to come.